Hi to everybody on Zoom. Hi to all of the folks joining us on YouTube. It's great to have you here for this multicast. Super happy to be with you all today. And really excited to share what's going on. Good morning, good morning. Wishing you all a wonderful, wonderful start to your day. And just grateful that you're here. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. I'm just going to give it a few seconds, wait till everyone hops on, and then I'll get into it. Just allow yourselves to get settled, and a warm welcome to you all. Today, I have it on good authority as day 1306. Good morning, Tiffany. Day 1306 of Call to Calm. That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, I have a lot to share with you. I'm just going to wait till everyone hops on. Hi to everybody on Zoom. Hi to everybody on YouTube. Remember to hit the bell button and subscribe to the channel so you get notifications as to when I go live. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My love to everybody who was on last night's Impact Call. Yes, it was amazing. So much love to all of you. All right, well, everything's working. I'd like to get started. Good morning, everyone. In case you hadn't noticed, things are becoming increasingly more and more intense by the day. And one of the things that we've noticed here, because we've been here now for 1,306 days, is that the more we have come into this place of acceptance and love of ourselves, the more we've been able to navigate what's happening in the world, what's happening in our lives, and also what's happening within us. That actually, the consistency with which we've been showing up has prepared us to meet any moment, a health challenge, diagnosis, unprecedented success and fame, with a sense of equanimity and harmony. And that makes my heart really happy. It makes my heart really happy to know that all of these things that were once described as mystical or esoteric experiences are actually just habits. That we can actually just through our commitment, consistency and repetition begin to lay a framework within ourselves for peace every day. And then actually when we look at meditation, really, well, what is that? Meditation is just an avenue through which we become aware of ourselves. That's all it is. At no point did somebody say that you had to do something with what you were becoming aware of. So for me, I've discovered that we can actually live in a peaceful, calm, meditative state throughout every phase of our life. And that isn't just something that happens in your sacred space or your meditation room. It's actually something that's happening all the time. And that the breath is the easiest and most poignant entry point into living from that place of connection. In fact, we can rest in the awareness of our breath everywhere we go. And as soon as we do, we begin to access this place of calm and peace that dwells within us. A state of being in Christian mysticism known as the peace that passes all understanding. It is an ever-present peace. It's not defined or determined by what's happening outside of you or what's happening in the world. It is a connection to something inherently present within you. And so, as we begin this next phase of evolution and expansion, and as the world continues to go through shifts and changes, and we continue to reevaluate what's important, what we're living for, why we're here, it's important to recognize that you can be fully capable and fully empowered to move through all of these things. Now, the blessing here is that people are still going through things. We're not in an ashram, we're not in a residential retreat center, we're not in a monastery, we're not escaping life. We're very much in life, very much immersed in family life, work life, grandparenting, you name it, being a sibling, running businesses. So actually, the blessing is that we've discovered a place of calm and peace in the midst of our daily activities. Why? Because we've been able to transform everything into a moment where we allow ourselves to access peace. And we've done that because we've been consistent. If this is your first day here with me, don't panic. Don't worry. Everybody had their first day. It doesn't matter how long you've been here for. What matters is when you show up. And what I want you to know, for those of you that are new to me, is that if you've never heard of me, have no idea who I am, haven't seen any of the interviews, you just randomly clicked on something on YouTube, that there are no accidents, there are no synchronicities. I'll paint the picture for you. You don't fit in, you don't belong, you're sensitive, you're experiencing life in a different way than everyone else. When you show up, everyone in your life starts to go through things, typically everything that they haven't loved about themselves. And at some point, all of this not fitting in and not belonging has led to excruciating amounts of suffering, because you've tried so hard to be like everyone else, but no matter how hard you try, you just continue to not fit in, not belong, and suffer. Eventually, and then typically, there's some form of addiction and some form of distraction that you have to engage in to deal with the pain of not fitting in and not belonging. So, why are we here? Well, we're here because we've found a way to live in a state of peace, to live in a state of calm all the time. We found a way to live in a state of presence. That actually enlightenment, self-realization, self-actualization, all of these things are not supernatural. They're not. They're actually just your natural state. When you become aware of your breathing and you come into the acceptance of what's happening in your life, naturally then you begin to find and uncover and reveal and facilitate the emergence of that place of harmony and equilibrium within you. Right now, more and more people in your life are beginning to plug into polarizing views, polarizing ideologies. People are increasingly scared about what's happening in the world. It's like we've entered phase 2 of the death and dying workshop, phase 1 being the pandemic, and now we've moved into phase 2. And now everyone's waking up facing the existential crisis or the existential threat of thermonuclear war, some kind of new virus, or some weaponized mosquito, allegedly, that's out to get us all. And every day now, the more we wake up, the more there's some version of this threat to our lives, threat to our mortality that's arising. In the presence of that, because you haven't been prepared for it, that can create unprecedented amounts of anxiety, depression. It can also make you question why you're alive. What's the point? Every day I'm getting up and I'm just being faced with another form of global crisis, another form of mass manipulation. I'm dealing with some other virus. Now there's some other threat to my humanity, and it's just overwhelming for people. How many of you have people in your life that are kind of panicking a bit? They don't know. They're more anxious and they're kind of depressed. And they just don't know what to do. It's like they just can't seem to get ahead of what's happening, right? There's just constantly the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Okay. The reason why they're struggling with this is because they haven't been here. They haven't been here, right? That's why they're struggling with it. They don't know that they can come back to a place of peace inside of themselves. They're still sourcing their experience from outside of them. Most of them are still believing the news. They're still believing mainstream media channels. They're still, and most of them are even plugged into alternative media channels. And now they're believing alternative media channels, which are just as polarizing and psyche hijacking as mainstream media channels. And so we just can't find any sense of certainty anymore outside of us. There's no certainty to be found. You can't look to the organizations and the institutions that you used to look to for any kind of truth, right? And this is the crumbling of the illusion. It's the deterioration of everything that we have held and that we have upheld, right, as the foundation of our existence, right? The pinnacle of civilization. It's literally crumbling. Because when the information streams are no longer reliable, then the organizations and systems themselves are no longer reliable, and then we're left with this predicament. Because for so long, people have been used to handing over their power to everything outside of them, to everyone outside of them, and of course now they have no faith or little to no faith in the organizations and institutions that they used to hand their power over to. So this is all culminating. It's all culminating in a very powerful way, because we now have no choice but to turn within, but to access our own intuition, to advocate on behalf of our families, to live from a place of truth. We have to go inside. We have to come from a place of peace, because if we're constantly being hijacked by the latest narrative, we're constantly having our psyche hijacked by all this intense emotion, we're just unable and ill-equipped to advocate on behalf of the choices we have to make. And this is the beauty of Call to Calm. Call to Calm came into being as a response to the global pandemic. Not a reaction, a response. Having gone through, having had a child who had 5 open heart surgeries, flatlined for 9 minutes, 18 months of hospitalization, and then subsequently had a heart transplant, I had gone through a death and dying workshop and experienced the many multifaceted shifts and changes that it brings into your life in advance of the pandemic. My pandemic, my 2-year window of falling to my knees and praying to God and surrendering everything and everyone that I know and love, while my heart was breaking into a million pieces, was 2015 and 2016. And subsequently, I can tell you that both Jan and I went through everything we went through with Celeste, and we just didn't care about what we cared about before. We weren't invested in the illusion. We weren't interested in playing the game. It didn't matter what we had, where we lived, who we knew. None of that was relevant. All of that just paled in comparison to the fact that Celeste was alive, that time was the most important thing, and that nothing else is really important. Nothing else is really important. We really began to realize that time is the most important thing, the time we have with each other, and the blessing of that time, because it's not guaranteed. And from that moment on, death became a conversation at the dinner table, because of course we had to prepare Celeste's siblings for the fact that she may not be here. Both Jan and I had to prepare for the fact that Celeste might not make it. In fact, there were moments where we believed that she wouldn't, right? And lo and behold, she did. And so we've already had this introduction into a death and dying workshop. We've already had this introduction into what most people are just going through now, okay? In our case, it was literally through our child going through a medical emergency and crisis, okay? And being on a medical roller coaster. For some of you, you've had that through the transition of a loved one. You've had that through you almost dying yourself and having some kind of near-death experience, right? So every one of you has had your own brush with mortality. Death has come to pay you a visit, right? And you're now at a point where you're also beginning to value your time and who you spend your time with and how you live and even what you're living for. And for most of you, it's drastically different than what mattered before. It's not about being successful. That doesn't work. You can't success away your suffering. It doesn't matter how much money you have and how famous you are. When your heart's breaking and there's nowhere for you to turn to, it doesn't make a difference. Not at all. It doesn't matter how enlightened you are. You still have to go through everything. So after a while, you begin to realize that there's no escape from being a human being. That actually you're here to be a human being and you're here to go through all of these things. And that's why I always encourage you all to not fix, heal, change, or improve what's happening. To not turn away from it. I know sometimes it's hard. I know sometimes it will reduce you to your knees. You'll literally be on your knees, praying, on your knees with your heart breaking. And I get it. But that's a part of it too. And after a while, you have to realize that this is really just an initiation. Whenever death and dying pays you a visit, it reminds you that life isn't certain, and that you've been given a gift, that this life thing is a gift, and that you have to figure out for yourself how you want to spend your time and what it means to you, okay? In the absence of that introduction to death and dying, which we've all had since the pandemic, nobody's ever going to forget that number count that just kept spinning on the screen and one horrible scenario after another that we just kept being presented with. Thank God we didn't have to live any of those out. Thank God we didn't, right? So we have to realize that death is an inevitability. It's going to happen in our home, we're just very open about it because, again, we had a child who flatlined for 8 minutes, 9 minutes. She was about to be put on life support, and all of a sudden she started breathing again. To this day, it's amazing to us that happened. It's also amazing that she found a donor heart and that she was able to have a successful heart transplant surgery. And now she's a flourishing 9-year-old. It's nothing short of a miracle. So we have a living, breathing reminder every day not to take life so seriously, to make the most of our time, to not focus on superficial things, fitting in with peer groups that are just lost in superficiality, trying to adhere to principles or some illusion of perfection that we're never going to live up to. It's really just a profound wake-up call. And this call to calm came into being, and I've shared this before, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself, because I had one friend that called me every day. So when the pandemic happened, I'm like, okay, I just need to go live on Zoom. At that point, we were still posting stuff on YouTube. And I'm like, I just need to be there every day. If one person comes, great. If nobody comes, fine. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, I just need to be there every day for people in the way that my friend was there for me. And it's not even that this individual was sharing anything profound with me. It's just the fact that they took the time out of their lives and what they were going through to think about me every day and to ask me how I'm doing. This was the genesis of Call to Calm. I also realized that the biggest thing that made the difference for me in my life as we were going through this shift was being able to access peace inside of me. I'd always grown up in a very spiritual family. First 5 years of my life, I was raised in a meditation room. And this whole spiritual thing has just been the fundamental essence of who I am, right? It's just there. I don't need to identify as being spiritual. I am. So for me, it's just a non-event. And in my house, we grew up with pictures of everybody because we had the deepest respect for everyone. I was every religion. I loved every religion, right? But why wouldn't you? Anyone who comes here to share a message of love and anyone who comes here to unite humanity, someone that you have to root for. Let's face it. So I grew up in a multicultural, multi-faith home where we were embracing of everybody because we just recognized that it was just love, that love had just taken the form of all of these people and that love was expressing through all of these individuals. So fast forward to the pandemic. We're here every day. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was here for 7 days a week at the height of it. I can't remember when we pivoted, but probably halfway into it, once we'd gotten through the most intense part of it, we pivoted away from a 7-day-a-week schedule, primarily because I didn't want my kids resenting this community. I didn't want my kids feeling like they were losing out on time with their father because daddy was more focused on the community and being with this incredible group of people from all over the world than he was in being with his own children. And so we pivoted in September of 2021, about 537-ish days of 7 days a week, right? And so here we are now on a 5-day-a-week schedule. And here's the funny thing. The death and dying workshop that began, right, with the pandemic hasn't ended. Have you noticed that we're still in a death and dying workshop? Have you noticed? Have you noticed that people are still confronting their mortality on a daily basis? They're still being asked to choose themselves, to choose love, to prioritize what's important, to figure out where they want to live, who they want to be, who they want to spend time with, and what's important to them, right? It's still happening. And it's the same scenario, except now it's not under the umbrella of a global pandemic. Now it's under the umbrella of 2 hot zones that we're aware of, 2 active conflict zones that we're aware of, multiple conflict zones all over the world that we have no clue about, that are not in the best interest of the mainstream media to cover, so we don't hear about that. But guaranteed there's more than two hot zones right now. Natural disasters, man-made viruses, the resurgence of old viruses like scurvy, who knew? Like, I thought we were done with that. And mosquitoes. And on any given day, it's like now more and more people are being faced with this death and dying workshop, right? every single day. Every single day, people are now being immersed into a death and dying workshop that they never signed up for. Everyone's being confronted with their mortality. Every day, they're being confronted with their mortality. And every day, they're being asked to prioritize their time. They're being asked to prioritize themselves. They're being asked to prioritize their values, what they believe in, the kind of world they want to live in, right? And this is what's happening. So what's happened as a result of this is that people are now beginning to access states of being that were written about thousands of years ago. People are now beginning to access states of peace and calm and harmony that actually people had never dreamed of. And the reason why it's working is because I realized a long time ago that being human wasn't a problem, that it's not an issue, that it's not something that I have to overcome, it's not something that I have to eradicate. Actually, being human is the very thing that allows me to love you. It's the very thing that allows me to relate to you. It's the very thing that allows me to connect to you. In the absence of being a human being, I would be useless. None of this would be happening. So what everyone in the transformational space and in the spiritual space, in the personal development space, what everyone was trying to get rid of, I realized that we had to bring along with us. That we're not here to get rid of parts of ourselves. We're here to open our hearts to every part of ourselves. We're here to really know ourselves and love ourselves. And that knowing of ourselves comes through becoming aware of ourselves. And that loving of ourselves, the precursor of it, is through the acceptance of ourselves. If you're still trying to fix, heal, change, and improve yourselves, then you're just sinking further into the quicksand of separation, of polarity, and of duality. You're just sinking further into it. The more you wrestle with your humanity, the more you get stuck in it. But after a while you realize, well, hang on a minute. If there is indeed a higher power, call it whatever you want, there's an infinite intelligence that's in charge of everything. I think everyone can agree on that. Whether you have a belief in a higher power or not, everyone recognizes that there's some organizing principle in the universe. Well then, and you're a part of that organizing principle, well then surely there's an inherent perfection to the fact that you are the way you are. Now, hang on a minute. That doesn't mean that you're going to be accepted by other people. It doesn't mean that other people are going to like you. But it's not really about other people. This is about you finally not having a problem with you, right? It's about you finally loving yourself and realizing that you inherently have value in being the way that you are. So the first wave of transformation that swept through the Western world was this notion, and everything was born of kind of science of mind, thought, beliefs, because there was a psychological framework in the Western world. So the Western world took spirituality, spiritual principles, and translated them into a mind-based practice. Okay, so everything became about the mind. How many of you have kind of seen that, right? That everything's about your thoughts, everything's about your beliefs, everything's about changing your thoughts, changing your beliefs. You know, we went through that somewhat embarrassing phase of manifestation a few years ago, where people were just, sticking post-it notes on everything, trying to change their minds, change their thoughts, change their beliefs, because they'd been led to believe that the mind was inherently a limitation, right? And so that was kind of the first wave that we went through in the Western world as it relates to transformational space. And I never understood it because I don't really have a problem with my mind. My mind really doesn't have a problem with me. I also realized a long time ago that changing my thoughts doesn't change my life. I don't need to change my thoughts. I just need to be aware of the fact that I'm having them. That's it. So then, once that didn't work, then we moved into this interpretation of reality that's based in emotion. That now it's about emotion. And so then everyone started to try and change their emotions and change their feelings and, try and have happy feelings and good feelings. And if we can just have happy feelings and good feelings and hold happy feelings and good feelings, well, then we'll manifest things. And then life will be the way that we want it to do. And then we'll be able to exert some semblance of control over our reality and have it kind of conform to our limited perception of how our life should be. I just need to feel it. I just need to get rid of the feelings I don't like. And I need to feel the feelings that I do. Well, that hasn't worked. And so Now in the Western world, we have two transformational theses that are fundamentally flawed, inherently incomplete, and that have led to zero transformation. How come? Because, you see, this journey, your journey, your life, wasn't about you spending all of your time trying to get rid of you. It wasn't about you meeting with a hitman who works for the mob in a parking lot at midnight saying, hey, do me a favor. Can you whack my ego? Because allegedly, if you whack my ego, I'm going to be so much better off and my life is going to be the way that I think it should be. Right? Or you're meeting with a parking lot with a brown paper bag of money with same said hitman. Excuse me, can you just whack my mind? Because if you could just put a hit on my mind and stop me from thinking, well then my life, or I'm just going to be able to manifest everything. The white picket fence, the car, the husband, the job, the husband, the life, the car, the house, the husband, the family, the husband, right? Like, it's like, yo, even the hitman's looking at you like you've lost your mind and gone cray cray. Then you're in the parking lot with the brown paper bag and the mate, excuse me, can you put a hit on my emotions? Because allegedly now my emotions are the issue. And if I can just get rid of these feelings and these emotions that I don't like, and I can just feel good about myself all the time and just feel happy all the time, and I can just be in this state of joy all the time, whether I really mean it or not, then I can manifest the husband, the car, the dog, the goldfish, the white picket fence, right? The job, right? See, so all of this has just become a means to an end. And I realized a long time ago that people were working on themselves. They were engaging in the sacred act of knowing themselves and loving themselves to get something, for some outcome, that a carrot had been dangled in front of my fellow human beings. And that carrot was the carrot of success, the carrot of fulfillment, the carrot of realization. However, the problem is that whenever there's a carrot that's dangled in front of you, you can never attain it. And that all of a sudden, everybody had to do all of these things to get to that place where they could finally have all of these things that they thought they were supposed to have, as defined by family, by society, by their peer groups, by their social circles, right? But those of us that have actually attained some modicum of success in the world will tell you it's not it. Not it. That actually people who have all of these things will tell you that they're still left to deal with themselves. So now here we are. The next wave. An authentic wave. An authentic wave that's been in motion since 1978, that now is reaching the masses, people like you. So here's what we're realizing. We can't get rid of ourselves. We're not getting rid of our egos. We're not getting rid of our emotions. We're not getting rid of our minds. We are going to embrace them, and we are going to be empowered to live with them. And we're going to recognize that we can be peaceful in the midst of all of these things, because who you really are and your potential has nothing to do with your ego, your mind, your feelings, your emotions, right? It has nothing to do with these things. You are the eternal, ever-present light. Never changes. The love never changes. And so what we've discovered here is that through resting in the awareness of our breath, through commitment, consistency, and repetition, we've given up the need to fix, heal, change, and improve. And we're starting to really get to know ourselves and accept ourselves. Because the more we know ourselves and the more we accept ourselves, the more we're empowered for everything that's happening in our lives. Because all of a sudden, we don't have to be some other version of ourselves in order to live our lives and in order to, navigate our daily routines. We don't. Actually, now we're fully capable and we've been rendered capable to navigate our way through lives the way we are. And coincidentally, here's what's happening. It is said that the highest form of spiritual practice is to observe oneself without judgment. What's happening now is that through resting in the awareness of your breath and coming into the acceptance of your humanity, something that all of my peers and colleagues have had to try and have you eradicate in one form or another because I've labeled these things as deficient or wrong, even though there was an intelligence that made us, And that intelligence is inherently unfolding perfection in every moment, whether we can perceive it or not. But that's a conversation for another day. Now that we're finally accepting our humanity, we're realizing that we're not a problem. And I could cry. And I could cry because for so long, so many of you have been walking around on this planet believing that you are the problem. And you've been desperately trying to do something to solve that problem. And you've been made to feel like you're the problem just because you're you. Not for any specific reason. Just for being you, you're the problem. You're the problem. And then we wonder why we have a heightened level of suicide and a heightened level of anxiety and depression in the world. Well, what are you supposed to do when being you just isn't enough? What are you supposed to do? What do you do with that? What do you do with the fact that you have emotions and all of a sudden these emotions are wrong? What do you do with the fact that you're still thinking thoughts and these thoughts are wrong? What do you do with the fact that you have these feelings and, these feelings are wrong? That the way you're living is wrong, that you're wrong, that messaging has taken up residence within you. What do you do with that? Of course that leads to anxiety and depression and suicide. Of course it does, because there's nothing you can do about that. There's nothing that you can do about the fact that you're you. Well, beloved, you don't have to do anything about the fact that you're you. At some point, you just have to be good enough for yourself. Because I can tell you, with absolute certainty and confidence, that you're never going to be good enough for anyone else. You're not. You're just not. You can't be loved by people who don't love themselves. And you're never going to be accepted by people who don't accept themselves. So what's happened through the course of being here and embracing ourselves is that we're not as anxious, we're not as depressed, we're not suicidal, we're actually not surviving. We're now beginning to find an avenue of expression that's authentic to us, and we're flourishing. Because now we've come to know that we're not the problem, we're not the issue. Now here's where it's magical. Excuse me while I have my Dumbledore moment. Here's where it's magical. When you're no longer a problem and you're no longer an issue, alakazam. There's no longer a problem or issue with anyone else being the way that they are. Because when you can finally accept yourself the way you are, well then you can just finally accept everyone else the way they are. And then you don't need to change in order to love yourself. And then you don't have to waste your time, praying the rosary at 3 a.m. in the morning, wishing that your husband wakes up like Brad Pitt. Tell me when I'm wrong. So, or your wife wakes up like Angelina Jolie. If that's still a thing. I don't know, I'm so disconnected from the world. Anyway, whatever. Do you get my point? After a while, you can celebrate life's creation, you, and everyone else for what it is. You can be with it all for what it is. You can just accept people for who they are because you can accept yourself for who you are. I'm going to say it. It's going to sound woo-woo. I know. But once you can finally accept yourself for who you are, you start to feel a little bit warm and fuzzy inside. I know. A little bit of love there. I know. It's weird at first because you're like, I didn't know that this was here. First you're shocked, it's all warm and fuzzy inside. And then that warm and fuzzy never goes away because it's coming from you. It's the love that you have for you. And then that allows you to have empathy and compassion and kindness for other people. See? So Call to Calm has actually figured out, this community, 46 years of life and living, have actually delivered to people like you from all over the world a solution. And that solution is not to be fixed, not to be healed, not to be changed, not to be improved, not to understand yourself, but simply to become aware of yourself and to accept yourself as a human being. You see, I discovered that I cannot improve on what God made. You couldn't be more adorable. You couldn't be more lovable if you tried. You couldn't be. And it's not your fault that you haven't been. You have to start with you. And you have to cultivate that sentiment and that feeling toward yourself from within yourself. But that can only happen when you stop making yourself wrong, when you stop trying to change yourself, when you stop trying to follow this flawed thesis that is a transformational space, even the spiritual space, the personal development space. It just doesn't work. You're always going to be you. One day, you're just not going to have a problem being you. You're going to love being you. You're going to wake up every morning and think it's Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Diwali, Eid, whatever the celebration is. I'm every religion. I get presents for every religion. I thought, why limit myself? Right? Like, why not just be every religion? Right? You're going to get every kind of present imaginable on every religious holiday and get to eat all the yummy food and have all the wonderful family time because you love yourself. Because you love yourself and you know who you are. And so that's what's happened here. What's happened here is that people like you from all over the world, thousands and thousands of people every day, come together as different can be, thinking their own thoughts, feeling their own feelings, living their own lives, having their own relationship with God, having their own relationship with life. And yet we find this commonality in our acceptance of our humanity and this love of what it means to be a human being. And if that isn't going to get us through the next few years, then I don't know what will. I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful for your consistency. I'm grateful for the fact that you wake up every morning and commit your time to being here. It makes my heart happy. That's why I wake up every day. It's wonderful to just be here with you all and to affirm the truth of all of you. There's nothing wrong with you. You couldn't be more adorable if you tried. Sending you a big hug. All right. Laurel, emojis. Stop typing Om Shanti Heart emoji. Day 1306. Can't believe it. We've been here for 1306 days. I sound like the captain of the Starship Enterprise. Captain's log. Day 1306. Yep, we're still loving and accepting ourselves. We're still peaceful while all around us are losing their minds. We're still calm. Yep, nope, still loving ourselves. Yep. Close your eyes, you beautiful humans. Open your palms. Resting in the awareness of your breath transforms your life into a living meditation. Meditation isn't something that you do in a dark room all by yourself, burning incense. Meditation, beloved, is your natural state of being. Peace is your natural state of being. Becoming aware of your every inhalation and exhalation. Allowing your life to become a living meditation. Accessing the peace that's always been there, the calm that's always been there, the intuition and the guidance that's always been there. This morning, we're going to profoundly appreciate the human being that you are. And we're going to accept the fact that only God could have made you. Look at you. that only an infinite intelligence could have come up with such a wonderful configuration of human like you. Continuing to rest in the awareness of your breath. Allowing yourselves to witness how deeply you love. How huge your heart is. How kind you are. How much compassion you have. How much empathy you have for others. How generous you are. How much you love your fellow human beings. Allowing yourself to become aware of what nobody else in your life may have been capable of becoming aware of. The love that you are. How loving you are. How much you want to love, be of service, and give. Just allowing yourself to get in touch with that warmth and that wonderful feeling in your own heart. This is where your love lives, within you. And this morning, we're going to allow our emotions to come and pay us a visit. And we're just going to love them. We're going to apologize to them for meeting that hitman in the parking lot at midnight and trying to get rid of them. Going to apologize to our emotions for following a flawed thesis or a cockamamie ideology, half-baked awarenesses and ideas. And instead of trying to get rid of them, we're just going to be aware of them and accept them. Wow. These are my emotions. These are my feelings. Look at me. I get sad about these things. I get happy about these things. I feel afraid of these things. I feel joyful in the presence of these things. Just really accepting and embracing your emotions and your feelings, especially the feelings. And just meeting these emotions and these feelings with a heart full of love. And then your body, your mind. Instead of trying to become somebody else's version of physical perfection, meeting yourself with love, with empathy and compassion now. Meeting yourself with love with empathy and compassion now. And feeling how wonderful it feels to not have to be different in order to be loved by you. Feeling how wonderful it feels to be loved by you, to be finally loved by you, body, mind, emotions, feelings, all warm and fuzzy about you. And then, as if that were not enough, celebrating your quirkiness, how eccentric you are, your uniqueness, your individuality, that life has tried to quell, subdue. Just opening your heart to how unique you are, and to the truth that I marvel at every day, that only a being, only an infinite power, call it whatever you want, could possibly come up with this configuration of human that is you. Look at you. Only an infinite intelligence could come up with such a wonderful configuration of human being. The way you feel, the way you think, the way you look, the way you live, your uniqueness. Look at you. All of a sudden, beginning to feel this love, a genuine, authentic expression of love, maybe for the first time ever, for yourself. For yourself. And maybe, finally, for the first time in your life, being good enough for you. Because you're adorable. And you're infinitely loved. Just really receiving that. Feeling this notion of a problem being lifted off of you. The label of issue falling off of you. Being you is not a riddle. It's not a conundrum. It's not a test. Being you is a blessing. Being you is the whole point. And loving yourself is the answer. All of the stress, all of the struggle, all of the strain of trying to change, trying to be different, trying to figure it out, all of that just falling away, all of those books ending up in a sacred fire. Everything that was based in the premise that you were imperfect and that you had to do something to be more of who you already are. of peace, an unmovable, unshakable sense of peace. You beautiful human being. You beautiful human being. Take some breaths and just notice how you feel. And I just want you to live with the truth today. Only an infinite intelligence, and I mean infinite intelligence, could have come up with you. Nothing else could ever have conceived of you. Look at you. Have you actually taken the time to hang out with you? You're adorable. Look at you. The things you get upset about, when you crinkle your nose, when you furrow your brow, the stuff that makes you cry. Look at you. You're adorable. And after a while, you realize that all this fixing, healing, changing, and improving is just rude. And that any time that anyone needs to do that to you, they're just rude. They just don't love themselves. You take that fixing, healing, changing, and improving, you use that on you, because I don't need it. Look at me. Only an infinite intelligence could have made this absolutely extraordinary configuration of human that's standing here in front of you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, please take the time to continue to rest in the awareness of your breath and continue to come back to that warmth and that love that you have for yourselves. If fixing, healing, changing, and improved actually worked, I would be spending every moment of my life trying to fix you, heal you, change you, and improve you. But here's the problem. I can't improve on what God made. I don't presume to know that you should be different than you are. Instead, I find it just so much more delightful and so much more easier to just accept you and love you the way that you are. Look at you. Adorable. Look at you. You're adorable. And don't waste your time trying to get rid of all these things. No more midnight rendezvous with mafia hitman in the parking lot with brown paper bags full of money. No more. Okay? No matter how much you try and be different, you never will be. Sorry. You're supposed to be the way that you are. So come back to your breath, and as you become aware of parts of your humanity, meet them with acceptance. Meet them with acceptance. Meet them with acceptance. Okay? Meet yourself with acceptance, and the love will follow. Meet yourself with acceptance, and the love will follow. While all about you are losing their minds because they're in a death and dying workshop that they never signed up for, I want you to be at peace, knowing that you're going to be okay. You're always going to be okay. You don't have anything to be afraid of because you're love. Wishing you all a fantastic Wednesday. Couple of things. There's a group alignment session today. What is that? That's your opportunity to be supported personally by me in a group setting. I stopped doing sessions a long time ago because I was just kind of waiting for this moment in time, this moment in human history. And when the pandemic happened, outside of the monologues and meditations, people were like, well, we're going through such intense things. Do you think you could, do these group alignment sessions again? I'm like, sure. So they're available. If you're struggling with anything, having a hard time with any part of yourself, come. If you can rearrange your day and be there, would love to have you. Also, just a reminder to our Impact folks that today would be a good day to get a hold of Beverly to let us know if you're carrying on, because there will be a waiting list for the next quarter of Impact. And I am reevaluating all of the programming and all of the content as we move into next year, because we're entering a whole other phase of life and living. So I would, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, make the most of everything the way that it is right now. All right. Send you all my love, and wishing you all a wonderful, wonderful day. For those of you that can't make, for whatever reason, the group alignment session today, because I know some of you have work, there's one every Sunday too. So if you can't make it today, I get it, come. For my YouTubers, love you all. Subscribe, hit the notifications bell. Thanks for being here. Spread the word, share, let people know what's going on here. You adorable human beings. And yay, big yay. Look at you. Look at you. You are proof that an infinite power exists. Look at you. You are a living, breathing example and proof and testament to the fact that an infinite power, call it whatever you want, exists. Look at you. Only something that is the source of everything could have ever conceived of you. Look at you. Have a great day, you beautiful humans. I love you with all